It all started with a bark. Not just any bark, the kind that splits silence wide open, stirs the dust, and sets a cowboy's heart galloping faster than hooves on dry earth. Luke McGraw didn't flinch often, but when his dog Buck started howling by the ridge at sunset, he dropped the feed sack he was carrying and sprinted like the devil himself was chasing him. By the time he reached Buck, the sun was bleeding over the horizon, casting everything in a mournful gold. And there she was, half covered in dust, skin pale as bone, lips cracked, and her dress torn and tangled around her ankles like she'd been fighting the wind. She was barely breathing. Luke dropped to his knees. "Buck, you found a girl." She didn't respond when he touched her shoulder, but when her eyes fluttered open just for a second, just long enough for him to see the fear, the desperation, and something oddly familiar, he felt something shift inside him. He scooped her up without thinking. He didn't know her name yet. But he was already sure he'd never forget her. Back at the ranch, the old cabin hadn't seen a woman in years. Luke lived alone, save for Buck and a few ranch hands who came and went. His ma had passed, his pa long before that, and his fiancée, well, that promise had been made through letters, not faces. She was coming, but hadn't arrived yet. He didn't know if the girl in his arms had anything to do with that promise. All he knew was that someone had left her to die. For 3 days and nights, she barely moved. Luke sat beside her, cooling her fever with rags and whispered prayers he hadn't spoken since he was a boy. Buck didn't leave her side either, curling up like a guardian angel with paws. And then on the 4th day, she spoke. Just one word. "Luke." He froze. "You know me?" Her eyes opened slowly, and a tear slipped down her cheek. "You don't remember me, do you?" He studied her face. It was gone now, bruised and burned, but something flickered. Her voice. That soft lilt. That quiet strength. Then it hit him like a bullet to the chest. "Clara?" She smiled weakly. "I was coming to marry you. The stagecoach was robbed. I ran. Got lost. Thought I'd die out there." Luke's legs almost gave out. He sat down hard beside her bed. "Lord have mercy. I thought you'd never come." Clara and Luke had been writing letters for over a year. She was the daughter of a preacher from Kansas, tired of city life, tired of judgmental eyes. He was a rancher in Wyoming with too much land and not enough laughter. They found each other through an ad in a newspaper, old-fashioned but full of hope. They'd made a promise. No matter what, come spring, she'd ride west and become his bride. And she had kept that promise, barely. But the worst wasn't over. The stagecoach robbers hadn't just taken her money and her trunk. They'd taken her voice, her peace, her courage. She woke up screaming at night. Flinched when doors closed too hard. Some days she didn't speak at all. Luke didn't push. He built a porch swing instead. Let her sit with Buck while he worked the land. He read to her in the evenings. Left wildflowers on her windowsill. He didn't ask her to be his bride again. Not yet. One evening, weeks later, Clara walked into the barn where Luke was brushing down the horses. She wore a clean dress now, her hair loose around her shoulders. Her eyes still held shadows, but they also held light. "I remember everything," she said. "But I don't want to be afraid anymore." Luke looked up slowly. "You don't have to be. Not here." She took a shaky breath. "You never stopped waiting for me." "I never would've," he replied, his voice rough. "Even if Buck hadn't found you. I'd have gone looking. I'd have searched every inch of this land." She smiled then, and it was real. "I want to be your bride." Still. The wedding was quiet. Just the two of them, Buck, and the mountains as witness. No grand dress. No music. Just vows whispered with trembling voices and hands that had held each other through fire and fear. Luke kissed her with tears in his eyes. Because love had arrived on the back of a miracle. And it had almost slipped away in the dust. Years later. An old man and woman sat on that same porch swing. Buck's pups chased chickens across the yard, and the sun dipped low behind the same ridge where Clara had almost died. Luke took her hand, still calloused and warm. "You know," he said, "if Buck hadn't found you." She smiled. "He was just the messenger." Luke turned, puzzled. Clara looked up at the sky, the wind lifting her hair. "God kept his promise. I just had to survive long enough to see it."